So on the Nocturne in E minor, I think it's a good idea to play back tempo, to play as evenly as you can with the triplets, and to think in overall 2 instead of 4. That means 2 sets of pairs of triplets is 1 beat in the measure, and the remaining 2 pair of triplets is another beat. And that takes a certain amount of finesse to play that evenly, and also to lighten up the second half of the measure slightly. So you get this. I'm going to go very slowly. 1 less. 1 less. You have this little dark non-harmonic tone that's into the harmony, is just slipping in. So you make sure you don't poke that too much, but it just slips in nicely. Now what I do is I follow the bass line after that. Now you have the tonic E minor for the first 2 measures, and after you have that tonic E minor, notice you have a 5th and a 6th here. So it's a good idea to rotate. You notice how I'm rotating a little bit. Rotate, see? You don't want to try to open your hand and try to, say I've got to open my hand and squeeze it out to do the, what would be here, a 10th on the outside. See there? You can see the rotation if you did this. You rolled it like that. So you want to kind of rotating through them. Now in the next measure, that would be measure 3, he starts moving the bass line. You want to study that, where he goes to F sharp, which is part of the dominant of E minor, and resolve it to the G, which is tonic. Dominant, the dominant note, to the tonic, to the dominant. Now remember, the dominants are inverted so that he gets the line that he wants in the bass. That's why you invert chords. So now when you unravel that into the actual outflow, you're still listening for the F sharp, but go very slow. Resolve into the G, be very even. D sharp, lean, less. Very slowly I'm doing it. Dominant, and then diminished dominant. I could have done that better because we want to hear one flowing line. That's better. Now this underpinning of the left hand is indeed underpinning. So you don't want it chugging out over your right hand. The right hand is really taking sort of its cue in terms of its shape from this underpinning of triplets. It helps it along really, so that when it comes in like this, I'm going to play slowly again. I'm going way back tempo. 1, 2, 1 less, 1 resolve, 2 against 3. So you can see if you keep those triplets nice and steady and they have spacing and they're rolling, it really complements the beautiful right hand. The right hand complements the left hand, so they have to intertwine nicely. And I did want to talk about the 2 against 3 and then measure 4. Make sure that this is very steady in triplet and this is steady in eighth, 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 eighth. So it's seamless. Trick is the most challenging thing in practicing slowly, and also when he goes quicker. So very, very even triplets. We could do rubato later and do different things, but when you first practice, I don't do rubato when I first practice. I don't start taking liberties with the phrases until later and when it really gets solidified. Now what's very interesting is he ends with this dominant, going to go to a tonic from a dominant, right? He doesn't. And this is what's so beautiful, because when he ends with this dominant, he goes down a skip to a G major chord. Now to show you what that would be, if I compressed the chord, it would be a B is not a factor in E minor, but it happens to be the 6th chord of B minor, because it's going to modulate now, briefly, into B minor by way of B minor 6th chord to B minor's dominant to its tonic. That's a very familiar cadence. 6-5-1 is not uncommon. 6-5-1, 6th chord to 5 to 1 in any key, particularly the minor, is a common thing. But that bridge across measure 5 to 6, going from the B major chord, which we think is going to E minor, over to the 6th chord of B minor is beautiful. And I would dip it down, so I'm going to go slowly again. And I take my cue from this decaying. This is decaying. This decaying. So come in on the decaying. That's quite beautiful. So you're dipping it down a little when you start that new phrase. So what he's doing now is, here's that G major chord, and remember the chords are always over the octave, the broken chords, so you use the rotation. You can always check that by doing this. See how your hand's moving. Do it slowly, you'll notice how that works. See? And I'm going very slow to show the rotation. Here's another rotation. You can see how my hand's rotating. You just want to slip and slide into, slip into, not slip and slide. Now another rotation, you can see, especially when you're going over these big intervals. I'll do that one again. This one you really just do lateral, do not twist here, do lateral. So you can see the rotations are important, otherwise you will get very broken kinds of sounds. This allows you to smoothly go across larger intervals between notes. So that's something you can study by doing little things like this. Here you can practice this. You can do, see what happens with the rotation. So now when you add the right hand on top of it, where you had this, keep that steady triplet, left hand, suspension, it's bigger, resolve and lighter, resolve. Motion here. You can see this happening. Let's see, fingering. So you want to hear those principal notes in each hand, the A to the G to the F sharp against 1, 2, 3. That's the best fingering for that. So when you have this, now on the theme 1 that we first heard at the opening, and you want to probably practice the top note. I'm going to do some interesting fingering to get legato, or illusory legato. We're going to go 4, 5, 4, do, li, 2, do, we, tie, and this will be 5, 4, 4, 5, 4, 5. And now we have 2 voices here. So I bring out the upper voice. Just giving you an outline of that more or less. And we did have an alto voice enter in measure 6, and I tend to bring out the upstairs as this is the melody. Bum, ba, thing for the upper voice. So if we do it together, we hear B, C sharp, C, C sharp, resolve. Actually, I said resolve here because it's a suspension resolves into a dominant. And another resolution. You can have a suspension that goes into a dominant, which is resolving into it from a second to a third, and then another resolution into the tonic. So you have a double resolution there, actually. Now, I think if you keep that left hand nice and steady in your early practicing, you'll do very well, and also use some rotations. Roll, underneath, more to destination. Dip down, listen to the contrary motion between the bottom and the top. Now we're still doing that steady left hand. Resolve it. 5, 4, 4, 5, 4, 5. Upper voice. So we ended up on the dominant. And I did want to talk about the 2 against 3 and then measure 4. Make sure that this is very steady in triplet and this is steady in eighth. So it's seamless. Now we get to this second page after we finish here where we have this. This is a surprise too because we think this dominant is going to go to tonic. Instead, he slips into a D natural and then it goes into a G7 chord to a C chord. He's going basically from a G7 chord to a C major chord. That's similar to what he did before, by the way, almost when he did this. He went into a G major chord here, but it became a 6th chord of another key. But this time when he jumps over to that G and puts a 7 on it, he's going to C major. So any chord can go, depending on how it's placed, and if you put a 7th on it, it can go somewhere other than to a 6, to a 5, to a 1. That's not what he's doing here. He's going to C major. Here it is. C major for a moment. So he has this. There's the G7. Center voice. C chord. Here's the G7. It's 2 against 3 again. Now lots of 2 against 3. Lots of secondary dominance. D minor. C minor. And it's building. Now he's back to B minor and it's dominant. But then puts the D sharp in, brings us over to E minor. Back to E minor. So I'm pretty much I should continue. Then he goes into a diminished chord of B minor. Resolve it. We'll make these triplets very even. Now dissonance, suspension. Primary dominant to B major. Surprise. So that's a surprise. You can see how I'm just creeping through that left hand. Because if you start going too quickly, it can get very jagged. It has to be very spaced out, and you have to learn the fingerings, and you have to learn where you have to do the rotations. because there's some places here that it's impossible to do a perfect legato. It just doesn't happen. So you kind of do an illusory legato. Let's see where we do that. We can do a legato here. We can. So this can be done all legato. But then let's see what happens here. It's just a big jump. Resolve. See, I keep resolving. So when you have the secondary dominants, while you may be making an overall crescendo through each measure, each secondary dominant goes to its own little tonic. That tonic has to back down a little bit and then go forward into the next secondary dominant. It's going higher, more intensified, but still dip a little bit down on the resolutions between the secondary dominants. So that's something that takes a bit of finesse. Here's the first secondary dominant. Dip it down. See, I dipped it down. Here's the second. See? Dip it down. Now leave. Resolve. More. Resolve. Then you can start building. So you can see overall you're doing a building, but you're not having a flat dynamic because secondary dominants, you have to pay attention to each of its sub-resolutions. Now what's very interesting, I'm going to end at measure 23. When he gets back to E minor here, after he's in B minor here, diminished chord of B minor, resolve it, so you have to keep resolving it. And he's overall getting softer here. Surprise, B major. So these harmonic surprises are very poignant, and you have to know when you think you're going to go to B minor and suddenly instead of B minor he goes. You have to just slip into that B minor come a little under it. That is a beautiful singing tone, but it is never punched. You slip right into it. It can melt into that cadence there. So I hope this is helpful in terms of early practicing. Always also look for the bass line. Look for a threaded fundamental bass line. If you can find one moving, sometimes they don't move very much. Sometimes you have a lot of F sharp, F sharp, F sharp. But when they start moving, it's very interesting to follow it, because if this one's moving, it has to resolve down. And the diminished chord slips into this. See? You have to be very aware of how you're shaping your harmonic rhythm. The harmonies and the rhythm of the harmony dictates certain dips and shapes. So this is a little bit of an idea of the first page and a half.